Hi folks, this evening we've got a very interesting podcast for you. So we're going to look at the biggest mistakes, the 5 biggest mistakes that teams make in rounders. So I'm joined by Ronan and Marie. Guys, how are we?
All good. Ready to look at some mistakes that we're all guilty of, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'd be like looking into a mirror. Ronan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, the first one we're going to look at tonight is just new teams coming in, lack of knowledge of the game, maybe not going to take a game in, maybe look one up online. You see it all the time. Is a lot of the stuff comes down to silly rules, not knowing what's going on around you. I suppose up until now it was probably difficult to do that because we didn't have a lot of coverage of it. But now there's the live streams of 2020 and 21, so that's 6 games now you can take in with high quality, and you'll be surprised what people will learn from just watching that.
Yeah, I think a lot of newer teams, and all of us, we were definitely guilty when we started. You're trying to, the rules, you've read the rule book, generally what you've learned in training, but then you're also trying to pick up rules on match day, and games just get away from you, and you're trying to understand, and it adds to the confusion, I think. So I think teams now, especially starting, are in a lovely position that they have all of this coverage to watch, and the really basic rules of when to run, when to leave the box, what you can and can't do on the field really removes any of that indecision when you're starting to play. So I think learning the rules, if we were starting again, or for any team that was starting, I think it's the biggest one to really get right on the training field before you show up on match day.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of thinking that we know all the rules, and it's until you get come across a stickler one, like you think you're dead in the right, but you're actually not. I think we're all guilty of that, to be fair.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's very hard to learn the rules, as well as learn how the game is played, as well as learn how to do this skill or whatever. Whereas you learn so much, but just going and watching the game, and if you can say if Carrick and Adamstown are playing, go along and watch it and talk to someone at the match, and they can explain it as it goes, because you learn so much quicker that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a match, right up to the All-Ireland final, you still see a time when players are standing around kind of looking at each other, looking at the referee for a clarification. There's always going to be a little bit of a learning curve at any match, but I think the really fundamental rules, particularly around batting and running on bases, and even just positioning and stuff on first base, are really simple, and they can cost you stupid outs that you can be kicking yourself because it's just a little bit of lack of knowledge. So I think this is the time of the year now everyone is getting set back at training and watching up those games. I think it's a good one to be focusing on for new teams particularly.
Yeah, so I suppose for me, probably one of the next biggest mistakes that you see in the game is not knowing where to play people. So you see teams at every level, even up to senior, where they might be playing a player what you'd consider out of position because their skill set doesn't really match up with that position. I know they might be a very good player, you could have the best catcher in the world, or you could have the best outfielder. Doesn't mean they're going to make a good first base.
Yeah, the playing players out of position, I think we all see it all the time, and with smaller panels particularly, it's really important that your players are a little bit more flexible around not just being stuck in one position. And if they are stuck in one position, you understand that that's not necessarily a transferable skill. So I think it's really important to pick your team, focus on your best 9 in those positions, but those 9s should be able to double up on positions, or if not, you have people on the sideline that are able to double up on those positions. And it can be soul destroying. Like Ronan, you're on second base. If you're thrown in as catcher and it's not working out for you, you're not a bad player, you're just a bad catcher. And you might be brilliant on second base. So I think it's just really important to understand, like Darryl said, the actual skills that your players have. You can catch every ball under the sun, but you mightn't be as mobile. So maybe there's a certain outfield position that suits you better than maybe centre outfield, where you have to run back and forth all day. So I think it's just understanding the skill set is an easy mistake to avoid. It just needs practice.
And probably underestimating the skill set. I know probably when we come into it 5-6 years ago, we probably were looking at it going, we played this juveniles, we'll be handy enough at this. But we realised then that the skill set was so high, no matter what team you were playing. And we didn't have that versatility. We were kind of a bit too rigid. Now we probably still feel a little bit too rigid. Whereas a lot of teams are playing mixed and that, and you're getting a chance maybe to play somewhere else. And it's a brilliant thing to have in your locker that, okay, well, we'll slot him in outfield, or we'll slot him in on first base. And it becomes a natural flow to it, really. And it's very important. Versatility is so important, I think, now.
I think even at training, it's no harm to throw people out into new positions, because you get a better understanding. Whether you're ever going to play out there, you get a better understanding of how the game looks. So I play outfield, and then in the mixed, I might move into a base. And I feel like I'm standing, right beside someone, because you're used to like acres of space outfield. So I think it's good in training to, throw people out into different positions so that they can look at the game from a different perspective. And maybe start to develop more skills in that area, or start moving around a little bit more.
And I think, not to cut across you, sorry, Darryl, but I think as you play teams that are maybe more established than that, they're clever. Is in, like, say, Darryl, if you start off centre outfield in your next game, and everybody is batting against you knows you, well, they're not going to hit it to you. But if I can move you out right outfield, or somewhere where there's a lot of activity, you need to be ready to go, don't you? Like, so
yeah.
I think that's so important to work on for teams. Definitely we learned a lesson in that last year, not probably having enough of people trained up in other positions.
Yeah, and actually I find it quite interesting. The two of you kind of mentioned the mix, because I nearly, like, I know, Marie, you mentioned, there's benefits to playing a different position, but I'd say that's probably the one where teams are the most guilty of playing players out of positions. Because, say they might look at, well, they're our top 5 ladies, or they're our top 5 fellas, and these are the positions they play, and they're like, oh, well, we actually need to play them somewhere else. So instead of, say, we need to play someone at left outfield, oh, well, Ronan, you're a great player, we're going to play you left outfield because you're our best player. Now, you might not be our best left outfield, and then teams kind of fall into that trap that, they're playing the player as opposed to playing the position. So it's about finding the balance.
Yeah, it's not nice to be dropped in somewhere where you're not comfortable. It's, nobody wants to be the bad guy out there, but it can go wrong for you or whatever. And yeah, I think that's very, very important skill set to have.
Yeah, and you see the best teams, the people are so comfortable in their positions, and that is, you don't want to lose that either. So it's about just maybe opening up the versatility of your players, and then also making sure that the skill that you need for the person on first base is the skill that you have there.
And just to finish off now, the nature of it as well is, no matter what team it is, the likelihood that the same 9 people are going to play every week, it's not viable anymore anyway, I don't think, with the amount of teams and stuff. I think you need to get the house in order now.
Well, you want people in your own club to be able to push the players so that, every position is up for grabs, so that, like it's going to help you just on everyone's individual performance as well as the team.
Yeah, and another big problem that we see, and another big mistake, especially teams starting out and the more inexperienced team, is always going for that big hit. And I think, I don't know if it just goes back to like our community games days or underage, where you're just swinging and trying to connect with the ball and get it as far away from you as possible. But I think teams have gotten so good outfield that big hit can also be massively damaging, because you can get, the catcher can catch you out, and then you can get someone out in the base. So it's about being more clever with your batting and not just going for the brute strength of it every time.
Yeah, and look, we're all so guilty of this. Hands up, like, definitely guilty. But
yeah.
I think there's a time and a place to do it. And if everybody does it, it's a quick 3 out a lot of the time. And I know it's not always personal fault. It can get down to the last ball, and you've no other option. You're gonna go for it. But it is a waste, really, when you look at a team who's a little bit calmer or relaxed, and they know, right, well, I'm going to back myself just to get the first. I think that's the thing that's creeping in now. The teams, where they're getting clever about it now, and even the big hitter batters, they're getting clever to it and saying, I don't want to be out again. I'm going to try something different. I think that it's one of the hardest things as well to get out of that habit.
Yeah, because sorry, we spoke to Ollie last week from Earn Eagles, who's retiring, and he was saying the difference in the game from 10 years ago, where the big hit was obviously a massive plus, to now moving more towards the place ball, being more clever with your batting. Like we've seen in the All-Ireland finals that are covered, some of the best batters in the game going for the little dink in field because that's what made sense at the time. And having, taking the ego out of it and being able to make that decision, knowing that you could absolutely send the ball flying, but that's not what's needed. So yeah, I think moving away from that big hit is a big part of the game, especially newcomers that maybe haven't played in a while. It takes a few games to realise that.
Yeah, and it's not even like the big hit is a big part of it, but it's swinging as hard as you can at the ball. Like it's like well, if you want to hit the ball, if you don't swing quite as hard, you're more likely to hit it. So you're going to be more effective if you hit the ball rather than the slimmer possibility of hitting the ball further. And it's like, I don't know if any of us have ever watched the film Moneyball, and it's about like getting on base. And, it's not about, hitting the ball as hard as you can. It's like, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to get the runner from third home, okay, you don't need to hit it 70 yards to get them in.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. There is a time to sacrifice yourself. Sometimes it's worth it and sometimes it's not. And that's down to decision making as well. Like if you're the first batter and you go up and do it, and we've all been there where that happens. But I think it's definitely, I know I've said this already, but it's definitely the hardest thing to get out of your mind when you go up to bat, because look at everybody. I'm not saying everybody wants the top players now. You can nearly see it on them. They're not trying to kill it every time they go up.
They're able to.
Yeah, they're able to, but it's as I said, there's a time and a place to do it, and the best teams now you'll see are probably the ones who look like they're putting no effort into the batting, but they're rarely getting themselves out.
It's that swinging at it as hard as you possibly can is, I think when everyone comes back playing, it's a big thing, and it's just so many more foul balls. There's so many, that are just popping up then for the catcher, for the bowler, because bowlers have gotten better and they're spinning it differently, and just that trying to put the brute strength behind it is.
And a clever pitcher is they're almost picking up on it now. Like they nearly know you're going to do it, and they'll throw you the ham sandwich to put it up in the air. So like I think there's a level of thinking, and that probably comes with a bit of experience as well too. So it's not detrimental to anyone, but it's definitely something to be working on. And probably when we are on that topic, another error that we see, and it's probably, you think, this probably doesn't happen much at senior level, but people missing a base, like it's, it really is under 12 stuff where you're trying to drill it into people to tag the base. But when you're in the heat of a battle, because it's so easy just to maybe miss it by an inch or two, and then you're out and you've killed the momentum for the team. And you're a referee, obviously, Donald. Do you see it much now happening? Like
you'd see it a lot more kind of when teams are starting off, like say maybe novice level. And it's funny because a lot of the time I nearly see it on people coming home where the ball's after been sent out and they nearly run back to the referee instead of going into the base, because maybe the catcher's standing there and they see the box and they'll go into the box and realise, oh, but sure, I obviously got home. It's like, no, but you need to touch the mat. Or a second is probably another one. If someone's running from first round to third and they're trying to take that corner as tight as they can, that's where they're most likely to miss it.
They're looking for the ball as well. They're seeing where the ball is. You can't
you shouldn't be worrying about that. Your teammates or your management on the sideline should be telling you. Like when I see people running to first and they're looking around, I'm just like, what are you doing? Get your head down and run as hard as you can first. And either there's somebody there to give you a call, or you'll have an idea when you get closer to it. But don't dawdle to the base. At least get there, and then you've got the time to make the decision.
The running over the base, and it follows in from the big hit. On second base, there's generally in the latter stages an umpire standing there. And like, it's hard in an umpire to, especially if you've run, if you've gone from first and are maybe trying to burst in home and to have to walk back or to, sacrifice an easy out just because you haven't taken the second to tag the base. The faster runners are probably more guilty for it because they are trying to carve out that extra couple of seconds with that bend. So really simple. It's the heat of the battle, like said Ronan. It's just something that slips the mind, and it's all about the concentration. Just get the foot on it, because the base minders and the person on second base is definitely going to pull you up on it. You know, if the game is tight, they're going to be calling the umpire, and you'll be watched from the second or third run the time that you get round. So yeah, it's an easy one to rectify, like most of them, but it's just down to that concentration.
Yeah, and like, you know, I don't know if you have ever seen it, you know, even at training, where there'd be someone, and maybe they're not used to doing a really big hit, and say they do the big hit, and they realize I can get a home run, and they go running as hard as they can because that's what they want to get, and don't focus on tagging the bases along the way, and you're like, yeah, but you're out.
And is that something that both of you would find that you would pull someone up on training? So I can't think of it myself of being, you know, training and someone is missing the base and it's only training, but it's probably that habit of, you know, even watching it in training, watching it when you're practicing.
I suppose for my club, people are kind of bedded in with so many people with experience that by the time they're doing something like that, they're kind of used to it and the habit is there. I suppose it's probably more of a danger, maybe not the right word, but it's more likely to happen at a new team where they don't have that experience and they're not used to seeing people, you know, definitely tagging the base. Or, well, I don't know about you, Ronan, but to be honest, at training, there probably wouldn't be too many home runs hit anyway, because the fielders are going to either get them out or get the ball back in time.
Oh, well, we actually have a new ladies team, and yeah, it was one of the things that we did talk about. I think we're going to bring in a fine system for it. If you miss it, you go back, you know. So yeah, it's one of them things. It's so simple, but it's soul destroying if it happens. Yeah, and yeah, you know, you've cost yourself a run, you know, for something simple.
We'll be eventually at electronic mats that just light up when you hit them and you run around.
Bars coming.
Similarly then, on a mistake that you don't want to make, and it's all down to the pressure, is very simple overthrowing and maybe panic throws that we see a lot. And it's something in the game you can tell if someone hasn't the decision made before the ball comes to them and they're trying to throw it in home or throw it to a base, and it's just a pure panic and the ball goes overhead. That kind of overthrow, and we see it a lot. We see it right up to, you know, from junior right up to the senior All-Ireland final.
For me, it's a lack of, if a game goes on a bit, you know, sometimes a 7 innings match can go on a bit. I think it's that switching off where there's a lack of concentration for even 2 minutes, and you're going to cost your team. That's the problem. It's a very hard thing to stay focused maybe for an hour and a half watching everything, and it's so easy to happen. See people maybe, you know, you're caught between the decision, will I get him at first, will I get him at home? What's the best thing for the team? And they're split-second decisions that you have to make. Very, very tough ones. You know, sometimes there's no right and no wrong answer, but it's about the awareness of knowing what's going on around you. And especially even from your management team, you'd be hoping that the right call's coming up. And I know it's moving slightly off topic, but sometimes we definitely would have brought this into the team where not everybody's calling now. It's one person. You have to be listening to that one person, or if you get a call from 2 different people, it's a certain mistake because you're in 2 minds already. It's just like an overthrow is a killer, and I've seen overthrows with a small hit ending up in a home run with 1 or 2 mistakes, and it's that, like Marie said, it's that panic.
And it's again, it's soul destroying if you are giving away like silly runs because of an overthrow. But also, I think a lot of it is you just want to get the ball away from you. You've got the ball, you've done your job, and you're wanting to pass it on to the next person, and you're not really considering the hands at the other end. So you see the best catchers are the ones who just float it to first base. You know, there's no, you know, panic throw. There's no like, you know, arrow coming up the line that's going to burst the hands off someone that's going to catch it. It's just so, you know, glides into him. And I think it's forgetting that there's someone on the receiving end of that ball that you're like bursting in from outfield or in from shortstop, particularly into home base. And if it gets behind the catcher, you have third base ready to run in home there, and it can be a killer.
Yeah, because like I know Ronan, you mentioned like it can be a lapse of concentration, but there's nearly times it can be the opposite in that you're so focused and you're trying to get that little bit of an edge, and you're maybe trying to push a throw to get a runner out on first that maybe it's not on. You throw it that bit hard, maybe first base can't hold on to it, as Marie said, or you throw it over their head, and it could be a game in the balance that you're trying to get that edge and it just backfires, and then all of a sudden, instead of doing really well getting that runner out on first, they've made their way to second or something, and like the whole confidence of a team can kind of deflate on a mistake like that.
It's also a knock-on effect. If you, just for example, if you throw on the first and it goes wrong, you're putting the fella on first on massive pressure because he has to recover for you, and he can throw it to the fella on second. And you see it all the time. He's in a panic now, and he's behind the such, and he throws it and it doesn't go right. And the clever runners are just going to keep going.
And like we talk about being outfield and expecting, so you're expecting, okay, the ball comes to me, this is what I do, but that's not an expected scenario, the ball going over your head. So all of a sudden you're running, scrambling, trying to pick up the ball and make a decision while the runner is going. And when that happens and there's people on the sideline, they go crazy, both your own team and, the running team, because it's unexpected out of the run of play. So it can cause massive panic around the bases and, trying to mop up a simple mistake. Do you think that the muscle memory of doing that in training, you see with catchers, particularly catchers to first base, it's so second nature, that throw, because it's just constantly repeated. For the fielders, for the base players, do you think it's just that muscle memory of getting that first to third throw spot on so that you don't even have to think about it?
Muscle memory and communication. Because I know, and it happened a couple of times in our mixed final in 2020 where the ball came out to me, and I know I was playing left outfield, but the people on my team know that I can hit first base from left outfield. And there's times I'll go for it, and then there's other times, say Ollie was playing first that day, and he's telling me straight away, no, it's not on. Even though I think it's on, and I know I can get it there, but he's like, no, it's not worth it. Go for second. Or maybe your shortstop is telling you that. So that communication is vital.
And especially with the positions moving. So if you have someone that you're used to throwing down first base or someone on second base has moved around, maybe they're not as confident in their hands. So yeah, I suppose it's just, you don't really want to turn around and say, please don't throw to me, but at least just know if you're going to throw it, at least deliver it correctly, that I'm not a diver, and maybe someone else who does play on second base can dive for a ball. So it's just knowing that, I think.
And on them, say a 60-40 percentage, we call that down, a throw like that. Sometimes you are better off maybe trying to stop the rot, get the insurance, so that if a mistake's going to happen, if you have tagged third or whatever it is. I think that's you see a lot of people, like most people that actually play outfield, there's not a lot of people can throw it 80, 90 meters. So that throw, like as Marie said there, that throw is so important from outfield to a base because it is stopping that rot. If you try to throw it to get the out on first or second and it goes wrong, it can end up a mess. It really, really can.
Yeah, it's nearly a bit like the big hit. Some people can do it. It doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah, if it's just going to bounce around the infield and not into like any kind of direction. I just think some grounds as well, depends on where you're playing. I know in our own ground, the home base, it can like trickle down the side, and next thing it's gone down a bank, and it's like there's a home run there from a bare little tap in field. So I think the overthrowing is definitely not an intended mistake, but I think it just comes back to that panic and that calmness under pressure.
Yeah. But guys, I know we went through 5 there. We could probably go through about 55 or 105, but we'll call it at that. So hopefully the people at home are seeing these, and if any of us are watching this, maybe put in the comments below which one you think it is, or if you think we missed one, put it in, or let us know what you think. But thanks a million for coming on.
I think just for fun, I think for the newer teams, these are so standard mistakes, that, like we said, senior All-Ireland winners, right down to under 12s make. So it's not a right or a wrong. It's not a it's not a criticism of people who make those mistakes. It's just something that you're kind of working on all the time, and every team right through is working on them all the time.
We're all guilty.
We're all guilty. Some of us more than others, but yeah, we're all guilty.
Guilty. definitely.